Okay. All right. It's 1 o'clock, so I'm going to go ahead and get us started. Welcome, everybody who is joining us for this webinar. My name is Leslie Graybeal. I'm the Director of Service Learning and Volunteerism here at UCA in Outreach and Community Engagement. And we normally do this workshop series at UCA downtown, and we get to see all your faces, and we get to have coffee and a snack. And so I regret that we don't have that, but I hope you're all comfortable in your offices or in your home offices, and glad that we were able to reach you regardless of not being able to get together in person. So it's great to still be able to connect and to get together even in this virtual space. And planning virtual events and getting together virtually is the subject of our discussion today. And so it is just wonderful to have three women here with us today who have offered different types of virtual events and who have used their skills and talents and expertise to adapt to this virtual world and to offer events that bring people together around a common interest or cause. And so I'm so grateful that they are here to share their expertise with us this afternoon. So we are going to get started with Erin Wood, and Erin is the owner and director of Et Alia Press, which is a small press for big voices. It publishes award-winning nonfiction and children's books of national interest with strong ties to Arkansas, and offers nonfiction and children's book editing and publishing consultations. So Erin's the author of Women Make Arkansas, Conversations with 50 Creatives, editor of Untold Arkansas, an anthology, and editor of and contributor to Scars, an anthology. Her essays have been notable in the Best American Essays and nominated for a Pushcart Prize. So as an Arkansas native, Erin holds a bachelor's in English from Duke University, a JD from Georgia State University College of Law, and an MA in Professional and Technical Writing from University of Arkansas at Little Rock. And we're super excited to have you here with us this afternoon, Erin. So I'm going to turn it over to you.
Thank you so much, Leslie, and thank you to everybody for being here. I see Victoria Mays in the audience, and she has been an Et Alia intern in the past. And so really excited to share with you all today about two events. And I am going to share my screen. Oops, got a little ahead. So the two events I'm going to talk with you about today, one is truly a virtual event. It was the Women Make Arkansas Market held on April 30th, inspired by my book, Women Make Arkansas, Conversations with 50 Creatives. And the other was a launch party event for the book, But First Save 10, by Sarah Catherine Gutierrez, and it was actually a drive-through book launch event. So maybe that will look a little more appealing as we hopefully move into the safety of the springtime. So I thought it might help to share a little bit about the background, since this was actually the second annual Women Make Arkansas Market. Just to tell you a little bit about the book, I traveled around the state. I interviewed 50 creative women about their crafts, how they hush negative voices, channel their intuition, and bear out their creative visions. And I spoke with, well, I guess included in the book are the Arkansas Poet Laureate, a kombucha brewer, a fire performer, a film production designer, a hatter, a drag queen, and a ceramicist who has made over 100,000 blades of porcelain grass, which is just incredible. And so the format of the book is an interview with each woman and her advice for younger creatives. And so the idea of the event was to carry on the work of the book and to continue the conversation and engage the public, allow people to ask women about their crafts in a very kind of intimate, personalized way. And I noticed that there wasn't, although there are tons of craft markets all around Arkansas, there wasn't an event specifically that focused on women creatives. So I thought that that would be a really cool thing to start. So last year, we were at the Bernice Garden in the Soma neighborhood of Little Rock. And you can see there were about 20 vendors last year, and there are some of us in the yellow frame at the top, and then below you can see actually Victoria there in the crowd. If you know her, you may recognize her back there. And so there were food trucks, a photo booth, live music, a poetry reading. You can see the aerial silks performance there, and the night was capped off with an awesome drag performance. We think that we had about 250 attend. It was a little difficult to tell since those, you know, it was kind of an open space, but it was definitely a really successful event, and a lot of planning went into it. So the pandemic kind of came a little bit at a decision-making point whether to move forward with the event. And I knew that I would be doing a lot of the work myself, so I didn't want to, you know, to go too wild, but I thought maybe one way to kind of keep it in a very organized fashion was to do it in a Facebook event, on a Facebook event page in the discussion. So it wasn't so much, you know, a live event, but it did still feel very interactive, and that let me receive the videos from each of the women that participated. And I will say too, this year, so last year I wanted it to really focus just on the women in the book, whereas this year it expanded beyond the book, and I hope to continue that in years to come, where you know, we're getting a lot of dynamic creatives from around the state who weren't necessarily featured in the book. So the event was, and I'm going to add in the chat, I will add a link to the Facebook page discussion group, where so you can kind of peruse and see what that looked like. So this year there were 40 women, and I really wanted it again to focus on celebrating craft and supporting local makers. I didn't want people to feel that they had to purchase anything, although, you know, certainly wanted them to if they were able, but at that point, and still incomes were all in people's jobs were kind of, you know, in question, and there was a lot going on. So didn't want to kind of force a purchase, but did want to emphasize, you know, supporting local makers. So the videos and posts were made throughout the day according to a run of show that I had established and shared beforehand, so that people could check in as they were able. And then I'll show you in a minute, there were 3 gift giveaways posted throughout the day, valued at more than $1,000, and those were items donated by the women makers. And there were also other small giveaways throughout the day. There was a nonprofit component raising funds for the Celebrate Maya project, which was kind of a close literary companion, I thought, to Ed Alia's mission. And so Crystal Mercer of Mercer Textile Mercantile and Ed Alia both did matching gifts, and that worked out really well. I can't remember if our goal was $400 or $500, but anyway, we met our goal, and that was great to be able to engage some new audiences with the Celebrate Maya project. And the timeline, again, it was, you know, it was a little rushed, so I wouldn't necessarily recommend this as a timeline. I would say, as anyone who has planned events knows, there's never enough time. So, you know, starting a month out, it was doable, and you know, it worked for the time, but I would certainly recommend starting earlier than a month ahead. But I made an announcement, shared the application details, and then I had a pre-established fee structure for the vendors. So I did it on a sliding scale of their actual sales. I might do that a little bit differently to kind of compensate some for my time a little bit more, but I thought that was fair in light of all the circumstances and just not knowing what everyone was going through. So then about a week after that, I let the 40 makers know that we're going to be a part of the event, know that they would be part of the event, and then made a public announcement. And I asked them to submit videos along with about 50 or 75 words about their work so that I could easily edit it and keep it in a spreadsheet and be ready to go on the day of the event. Then the day before, I shared the run of show and posted that so that people would know, be sure to be there to support their friends and kind of know what was coming. Then on April 30th, that was the day of the event, and I posted videos throughout the day in the discussion area of the Facebook page. And I tried to kind of front load that and get some interest going. And then I continued to post as often as I could. And let me go back and say one more thing. I did back up everything in 3 different ways. I had all of the videos on Google Drive, and then I also put them on a YouTube page, and then I also added them to the At Alia Voices blog and just didn't share it, just to make sure I had triple checks that everything would be there on the day of the event in case of any problems. So these were our giveaways. I think they turned out really great. We had a lot of participation, and they, in order to enter the drawing, you had to follow and then also tag several people. And so that kind of is a great way to pull, friends of participants into the event. And each gift was on a theme, as you can see. And then I made sure to acknowledge the donors along with the gifts. And then, and I'll share all of this as Leslie can attest. I needed a little bit of tech training, so I planned to be sharing all these in the chat as we went, but I will share them all after. But so all of the videos, like I said, are both in the Facebook discussion and also on the Voices blog. And so I chose 3 here that I thought if you were looking through to kind of get an idea and a feel for the event, these really gave a nice variety. Bang Up Betty, Stacey Bowers, hers, she actually, lucky gal, has a filmographer husband, and so he made hers and have a very produced, kind of very polished feel. And then Mitchell Crisp, hers was really so much fun. If you watch nothing else, definitely watch that. It's really fun. So it was kind of like a studio tour, but also she comes from a film or works in the film industry. And so she knew how to patch it together pretty well too. And then if you've ever heard Crystal Mercer talk, you know that she doesn't need anything around her. She is just super engaging on her own, but hers was completely, kind of a casual off the cuff feel, just a tape it straight through and there you go. And it was fabulous just that way. And then this was some after event press from Inviting Arkansas. So you can see they did screenshots of the women as they're doing their videos. So that was nice to get some press there. And so now I'll switch gears to the launch event for Sarah Catherine Gutierrez's book, But First Save 10, the one simple money move that will change your life. And this was in July. And we kind of knew that this book was going to, Sarah Catherine does everything big and she's amazing. She has a huge support system. And so we had pictured, a launch with several hundred people attending and all this great fun that we were going to have. And actually I'm excited to share that Time Magazine has a Next Advisor partnership. I just named But First Save 10 one of the top personal finance books of 2020. So that is really exciting. So we kind of knew that we were going into this, wanting to make a splash as much as we could under the circumstances. So this was a drive-through event that was hosted in actually her parents' semicircle driveway in Kamak Village. And we sent out the electronic invitations by Evite, and it kind of made a double, it was a double, moment for the book, because not only were we inviting the people who we thought would actually come, but we were sending it nationwide to all of her friends, family, network. So that was good. And then I think we had about 100 attendees. One thing that I really would recommend if you do an event like this is to have a couple, well, of course, as any event, have some people that don't mind being bossed around a little bit and are just on hand to do whatever it takes to pull off the event. But also we had 2 designated runners. And so they went to each car and made sure that their payment was taken care of, and if they had any questions. And they also, because this was a book launch and involved signing books, they also asked if there were any special names that they wanted it signed to, and they stuck a Post-it note on the passenger side door so that once the car approached, that Post-it note could be handed to Sarah Catherine and she could quickly add in that special signature. And that just kind of helped ensure that everything ran smoothly. And so for the invitation, we tried to make it as detailed as possible. And we made multiple kind of opportunities to absorb all of this information, because it could be really overwhelming, but we figured repetition, and hopefully that will help everyone kind of get it, since it's a new concept, BYOB, bring your own bumper. So first of all, we let them know what the driving route would be. We also included a map in the invitation with arrows. And so they had the route. Then we let them know what we expected in terms of safety. I think at that point, we were tipping into the citywide mask ordinance. I'm not sure if that had already happened by the time we sent out. I don't think that it had by the time we sent out the invitation, because we're asking people to please wear masks versus like telling them that they had to. But really, everyone wore masks, so that was great. Then we let them know how all of the opportunities for payment. So PayPal, Venmo, credit card, personal check, we let them know what all of those would be in advance. And that just kind of gave them the opportunity to take care of any of the payments that would need to be taken care of. And then if they had already pre-ordered the book, gave some directions of how that would kind of unfold. So in the middle of the screen, you can see one of the actual printed, we had these signs, and signage went all the way back through the line so that they could kind of have an opportunity to pull forward and see the next sign. And the line moved. I mean, I would say, some cars were there for 3 or 4 minutes, but some cars were only there for a minute or 2. So I think people seem to have a chance to read everything. So first of all, launch party ahead, just let them know that they were in the right spot, what to do if they pre-ordered, a reminder about the payment options, where the pencil is there in the middle, let them know that the book signing was coming, and hopefully they might want to add some extra books on as they thought about what women in their lives needed the advice of saving. And then another great thing that I think really helped make this event seem a little more like a traditional launch party. Normally, when you go to a book launch party, you would see the author making a launch speech. So Sarah Catherine recorded that the morning of the event, and we shared that on social media, and then also did this sign to let them know that they could, tune in while they were hopefully in park and listen to the launch speech if they wanted to. Then just a reminder to put on the masks, and Sarah Catherine's husband was trying to run a drone. I think that didn't quite go as planned, but it was attempted anyway, and got some footage of the cars. And then here are some pictures from the event. So I think I said earlier, we think we had about 100 cars-ish. You can see in the middle there, the picture of the house. We had all the books set up there, and as much as possible, they were pre-signed. And then we had extra masks and hand sanitizer and all of that kind of thing. Where possible, we tried to put the books through the passenger side door to just kind of minimize contact there. And some people did approach at the end of the party, and that was fine. We just try to keep everybody's masks on, and it seemed to be quite a successful event. And so that is it for me. And I hope you will find at Alia Press on social. And then also please feel free to email me any questions you may have at hello@aliapress.com. And also, as a thank you, you can take 15% off of your book order with code give15, or also if you're interested in editing or publishing consultation, you can see about that under the consultations tab, and happy to give you 15% off there as well. So I will stop my share here.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Erin.
Yeah, and I'll add those links to the chat.
Yes, I did my best to add the Facebook link, and I might have messed it up because it was defaulting to March 2021, but I think you can kind of toggle back and forth, but I'm sure you have a better link to put in there.
Okay.
For those who want to peruse it.
Thanks.
And I think your statement about the drone, that it didn't go as planned, but we attempted it anyway, is just emblematic of my entire 2020. So thank you. And so for everybody, if you have questions for any of the panelists, I'm going to ask that we just save them for the end, and then we can do some Q&A time with everybody. But feel free, if you want to go ahead and put a question in the Q&A section of the webinar, you're welcome to do that, and we'll just hold it for the end. All right, so we're going to move to our second panelist this afternoon, and that is Julee Jaeger, who is a scientist, community organizer, and mom. She currently serves as the Conway Local Group Lead for Moms Demand Action for Gun Sense in America, an organization committed to ending gun violence in the USA. Since 2016, Julee has led the group in Conway, training local leaders, holding monthly meetings, organizing a yearly Wear Orange event to raise awareness about gun violence in our community, and holding a yearly Sandy Hook Remembrance, meeting with community leaders, presenting our Be Smart program on safe gun storage, fighting unsafe gun legislation in the Arkansas legislature, and volunteering for gun sense candidates. So Julee's super out there in the community, something that is challenging to do right now, but that she has done just with flying colors. So thank you so much for being here with us this afternoon, Julee.
Yeah, thanks for inviting me. I wrote that. I know I wrote that bio, but that's sort of my spiel. So it's so nice to meet you all, especially during COVID. In my day job, I also help communicate for an environmental engineering firm. So, Erin, I could see your tech editing background in your slides, and I really appreciate all of that. And I think we've got a lot of communicators on this call so that are really jazzed about what we're seeing. So, let me share my screen here. Hold on. Who can share? Oh, okay, I'm going to share my screen and it says who can share. Hold on. Okay, here we go. I am here. Let me share my slides. Hold on. Sorry about this.
I was telling Kristy earlier, I'm never going to not ask, can you see my screen that I'm sharing?
Yeah,
No matter
right.
how many times I do it, I'm still going to ask, can you see my
Okay.
screen?
So I've got 3 monitors here and everything just didn't come up on the monitor I thought it would. So, okay, now I'm ready. So organizing during COVID-19, can you see it now? Yes, wonderful. So at Moms Demand Action, we have monthly meetings and we have these big yearly events. And it can be hard to organize even when we get to meet in person. One of the tools that we have used for meeting in person that worked really well during COVID is text messaging. And that is getting people to come together. Normally we would use it for something like we had a forum with law enforcement in 2018. We go to volunteer events. We talk to legislators, and to get people out, text messaging has usually been a great way, but also, we're building community here. So that's suffered. We're also um, trying to renew the energy of our leadership and incorporate ideas from our leadership and make sure that we grow as our community grows and encompass just all the feelings um, that come with talking to gun violence survivors and advocating for them, advocating I'm a gun owner, so in bringing in more gun owners. So our big event that we have every year, and it'll sort of be what the focus of what I'm going to talk to you about is, it's called Wear Orange, and we raise awareness about survivors of gun violence. That might mean you have been shot or you have been in an event where somebody else has been shot. That means maybe a family member has died from gun violence, and that includes unintentional shootings. It also includes suicides. So it's a time where we don't talk about politics or policy, but we really uplift our survivors and recommit to that we have fewer people suffering from gun violence every year, that we have more people who live their lives free of gun violence. Um, so this is a big event, folks. We started in 2016. We just had a few folks in Conway around the fountain. Mayor Townsell was there, and we just had a great time. It was a great kickoff. And we've grown every year since then. And you can see the photo from 2019 there. We had a big event in the park. And, I'm just sort of looking at that photo in the lower right now, and I'm going like, oh, where are your distancing? Where are your masks? Like, it's just so different how we changed. And so we get a lot of support from our national organization on putting on our in-person event. But so we had a meeting scheduled on March 12th where we were talking about this event, and that meeting got canceled. It was right. If you remember in Arkansas, I think that week, that day, a kid tested positive in Little Rock, and everybody was just like, oh my goodness, it's here. So we canceled our meeting. And our next meeting was on Zoom, and we had to plan this event for the beginning of June, folks. And so we used our tools. Our tools were text messaging to get folks to turn out to talk about planning this meeting. And we turned to Zoom to plan these things. And even though we had this, I know we're past this point now, but even though we had this big event to plan, the Zoom tool was just so important to be able to check in with people and say, how are you doing? And you haven't seen anybody for a month. This was right into lockdown. And even now when we have our meetings, like there's a portion of time that we need to just like, hey, this isn't a high stress meeting. You're gonna sit back, you're gonna listen. Maybe there's some things we were gonna talk about. Hopefully there's an entertaining part, and hopefully we're gonna recharge your batteries to be able to meet our goals. So we had a couple of those meetings. We used Facebook as a tool to brainstorm ideas because it's really hard in a once a month hour-long Zoom meeting to really have that discussion or to tease out your ideas to actually plan. We did have some leadership meetings that were just we did have goals there, but we made sure to have fun and to connect with each other in those. Like, so it wasn't just like organizational support tools; they were really like life supporting tools too. And so in those meetings, we were talking about like, oh, do you have your mask yet? Do you have a mask? Where are you buying your masks? What mask patterns are you sewing? We found out we had a lot of mask sewers. We had crafters in our group. And so somebody came up with the idea, well, why don't we make orange masks? This is a Wear Orange event. Can we make orange masks? How many masks could you guys make? It's sort of asking a lot of people. But I think outside of these tools, like we wouldn't have, asked the question, we wouldn't have started the conversation. So, y'all, we went into mask making mode. We had 4 different folks sewing from bias tape, folks who are into that sort of sewing thing, to t-shirt ties, just all sorts of materials. And you might remember too, if you're a crafter, it was really hard to get elastic in April. And so there were no real over the ear ones. And so this led the conversation further, like, okay, what are we going to do with this? We're going to make masks. So the goal was to raise awareness about gun violence in our community by wearing orange masks. We aren't going to get together, so we need to take selfies that we will share on social media to promote our event. And then somebody else asked, like, well, is there anything else we could do? Like, I'll drop off my masks at this little free pantry. How about we drop off some supplies while we're there? And it turned into like, okay, I've got another drop off of 10 masks. I've got these supplies for the pantry. And that turned into a big donation to CAPCA. It just sort of kept building and kept building. And those are through this was all through online planning and conversations. I don't think we used email. But to put out like the call, like, hey, the masks are here if you want one. We used closed Facebook groups. We used some text messaging. We used Facebook Messenger, and just photos of ourselves in our masks, getting the word out. And so here is the little free pantry at the Episcopal Church here in Conway. And here's Dee Sanders at making a donation to CAPCA. We were able to use tools like Venmo and the Cash App to raise money. So then people weren't passing cash or dropping off checks or any. So we did this completely separated from each other, except for, if you could choose your own capacity too. So like if you were homeschooling kids and you were really stressed out, you could say like, okay, I will pick up a mask and I will post a selfie and I will talk about gun violence and the Wear Orange event. But if you had the capacity, you could be sewing masks, you could be picking up food, dropping it off, and planning to do more. So we had all different sorts of levels for our volunteers to pick up on that. So I've got a quick summary slide here. What worked for us, having that list of established supporters, even in a good year, our Wear Orange event, we get like 100 to 200 people to it. But our meetings are still pretty like 10 to 20 people, if that. And so just having that monthly text like, hey, we're still meeting, we're going to be talking about X, Y, and Z, but if you just want to come see us in June too and support us during this event, they know it's there. And so people were sort of prepared for us to come up with something in June. And that we were still around in COVID-19 and we were still talking about safety. The message was still safety. The Zoom came in super handy. I think it came in most handy for just my leaders to decompress and to talk. And because, frankly, the organization wasn't, number one on people's lists in April, May, and June, really. Like we were all really still stressed out about COVID, but we were still united. Also, we have a national conference, and that all happened over Zoom, and they used the same sort of Zoom and selfie model to raise awareness about that event. And we were also adaptable. Zoom helped us keep the conversation going. We were adaptable when our community partners needed support. With the George Floyd killing, we still wanted to be able to support all that was going on around that, but we just didn't know how. We normally bring our kids out to events, and with COVID, it let us, be able to discuss those things and sort of pick our levels of support so we could support. The Facebook groups was a great incubator for this. I know a lot of leaders in groups like this take on a lot of the work themselves, and it's a solo person with a lot of helpers. But this really was like a team event, a team idea that came together, and I couldn't have done it. I couldn't have come up with this as the leader. I couldn't have executed it like this. This was so many people like taking it on and taking ownership of it, and feeling a need. One of the good things we use Facebook for too is we found, I think that people were sort of exhausted at some point by emails and text messages. To have just a video update, you should, try to make it less than 5 minutes, make it on the weekend. People are scrolling through Facebook, that they get that video update, that they feel like they know what's going on. They can listen to it if they want to. I think a lot of people play those things like while they're cleaning house on Saturday or whatever, because they get a lot more exposure on the weekends. So that was another strategy that we used within the closed group. Yeah, the face-to-face planning time, that was really valuable. That went away, but Facebook groups covered it. And so thanks for listening to me talk about this. We are into the text as a tool. You can see here we've got a text join to 64433. And we get that's how we get new members and connect with new people and get them to our Zoom meetings now. So thanks.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Julie. And I loved what you had to say about, engaging your volunteers and engaging community members, just allowing them to choose their own capacity. I feel like that's something that really a lot of us probably identify with right now, of, just feeling our own capacity changed so drastically right now. So that's all wonderful information. So we are going to finish up with our third panelist, and then we'll have some time for Q&A for all three. But Kristy Carter is our third panelist this afternoon, and she's the Director of Marketing here in the Division of Outreach and Community Engagement at UCA. And she serves on the Board of Directors for the Learning Resources Network and Parker Education and Development. She's a former board member of United Way of Central Arkansas and Bethlehem House. And she's the state coordinator for the American Council of Education's Office of Women in Higher Education, and serves on the advisory board for the Arkansas Council for Women in Higher Education. So Kristy's just got her hands in a lot of stuff off campus and here at UCA. And so we just really love having her here. I love working with Kristy. And so she's here to equip you with some more confidence in your ability to create innovative and engaging virtual events. So thank you so much, Kristy, for finishing up here this afternoon with your all of your insights and expertise.
Thanks, Leslie. Hey, everybody. I just wanted to say good afternoon, and to all of our veterans out there, happy Veterans Day. To our servicemen and women, thank you for all you've done for us and our country. I just really come to you guys today just to offer some practical tips on what I learned, kind of like trial by fire. When the pandemic first started, we had a lot of events in the hopper, you know, for the Women's Leadership Network, and we had to pivot somehow. And so I said, you know what, let's go virtually. We can do this. But it was a lot of learning and again, trial and error. But I want to just share some tips with you all today. So I'm going to share my screen.
Kristy, do you want me to go ahead and launch your poll while you're doing that?
Oh, well, yeah, I'll do it here in just a second, actually. Okay, so I really just want to get to know a little bit about you all, and tell me, if you can, through this poll, what is your virtual meeting platform of choice? And so you should have a poll on your screen. And right now, it looks like Zoom is winning the race. I'm telling you. And I'm so glad you guys said that, because Zoom is really all I know. Oh, good. Looks like the majority of us use Zoom as our meeting platform of choice. Awesome. Awesome. So about 96% of us are using Zoom for our events. And so I will just gear my remarks today around Zoom. I'm just going to end the polling here, but put that tool in your toolkit as something that you can use when you're planning virtual events. So I've been at Outreach and Community Engagement now for about 16 years. And before that, I actually worked in a distance learning environment as a high school teacher. So when I came to UCA, everything was still very, you know, manual, hands-on, and I'd come from this technical background. So I wasn't sure when I'd ever get an opportunity to use those skills from when I was teaching until March. And it all came back kind of flooding in. And I was able to just pick up Zoom and just kind of start off utilizing or dusting off some of those old skills I had. We plan events all the time in Outreach and Community Engagement. And I think the first thing that I want to start with, for all of you who have nonprofit organizations, I've seen a few names out there that I know. If Miss Tucker is out there, Miss V, she just actually planned a great conference for Bohemia Cares. It was all virtual, it's very interactive, and so kudos to you. I think Bethlehem House is still out there, TJ. So the things that you guys are doing is great. What I do is I always try to mimic a face-to-face event as much as possible when I'm planning a virtual event. And what I mean by that is, I try to figure out how can I utilize this environment to create, some structure. How do I collect registrations? How do I take roll? And different things like that. So with Zoom, of course, we can always use our chat box feature to take roll. You probably never thought about that. So, if everybody's on the call, you can just ask everybody to put their information in the chat box and let us know that they're there. Because not all the time when you have an event, everyone who actually signed up actually attend. So it might be a good way to take your registration to take roll at your event. And also when I'm mimicking those face-to-face events, I always try to consider my guest speakers and ask them how they would like to engage with the audience and, using visual aids, etc. All those things are so important when we're planning these virtual events. The second thing that I try to do is consider my audience at every juncture of planning. And that just means simple things such as making sure I'm on a really secure internet connection. Sometimes, we can launch a virtual meeting and be in a spotty place, and you really don't want to do that. You want to try to be, if you can, be hardwired into a system or into your internet and have a strong internet connection. You want to make it fun and engaging as possible. Again, you can utilize that polling feature that I just showed you all, and find as many ways as you can to make that environment as interactive for your participants as possible. And then the third thing, which is so key to any of this, is to really familiarize yourself with your virtual planning or virtual meeting platform. So much is in the settings of Zoom. If you ever just sat down, but while you're setting up or creating or scheduling a new meeting, even if you're on the free version of Zoom, you have some different function. It has some different functionality that will allow you to make your event, a little bit more flexible. And make it enjoyable, something different. And you can actually have, I don't know if we have it here on this platform, Leslie, or not, but you can raise your hand, you can interact that way, say hello, give me a thumbs up virtually, etc. in the webinar. And there's also different features between the meeting and the webinar. And I think Leslie alluded to that earlier, that some functionalities you have and some you don't, but just really explore the back end of Zoom. Let's see, what other cool notes do I have here? Did you guys know that you can actually save the chat function or save your chat box? Did you guys know that you can save the chat box? So if you're really into research and you want to host focus groups, I've done that before. We host focus groups and we ask participants to put their thoughts in the chat box, and you can actually save your chat box as it's not a Word file, it's actually a text file, and you can save that and utilize it however you need to do some analysis if you're using it for research purposes. So that's really pretty cool. All in all, I have some notes I'm happy to share with you. You guys should have my contact information. I can put it out there in the chat box. Let's see. It is Kristy Carter or K Carter at uca.edu. So K Carter at uca.edu. I'm trying to find my chat box function. I don't have it right now.
You're fine. I put it in the chat for you, Kristy.
Okay, thanks, Leslie. But really, that's all I have. Just I want you guys to take whatever tools you have access to and find really creative ways to use them when you're planning an event. Something that I like to do is just sit and think, if I were face to face, how would this go and what type of modifications can I make to make this a great virtual opportunity for folks. So there again, be creative, make it your own Zoom experience. And if you guys have questions, I'm here. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Kristy. And for those of you who don't already follow the Women's Leadership Network here at UCA, that's an initiative out of outreach that Kristy has been very involved in, among all of the things that she's involved in here at UCA. And they've just been doing a lot of great virtual events. And since so many of our nonprofit leaders are women, it's just a great opportunity for you all to get plugged in with that network as well. So in addition to all of the outreach events that Kristy helps to coordinate in a virtual space and to promote, those are the Women's Leadership Network events in particular I wanted to just give a shout out for. So let's spend some time asking questions. And I see that there's a few in the chat already, and I have some that I jotted down. So if you would like to ask a question out loud, if you'd like to be unmuted to do that, you can raise your hand and I can allow you to talk. But you're also welcome to put them in the chat and I'll read them out for our panelists. So Tracy has asked if y'all have tips for promoting virtual events.
Tracy, I'm so glad you asked that question because I had a note on here, but I really didn't want to read off my paper. But to promote your virtual events, I know Erin and Julie gave some really good tips about texting and maybe shooting out emails and definitely utilizing your social media platforms. But I think the number one thing is identifying your audience and trying to see how you can engage them just by word of mouth or text to text, and try to get people to come back and to your event. So, and whatever options you have that are free, low cost, no cost, those are always good. You can always boost posts on Facebook at a reasonable fee if you have a budget or small budget that you can work with. But definitely utilizing those different avenues that you already have access to is going to be helpful.
Yeah, and Tracy, I know you had put in the chat as well, just a recommendation that Whova is a good platform for a virtual conference. So we don't have anybody on here who was talking specifically about planning like a full-scale virtual conference, because that's kind of a whole other beast. But yeah, Kay McKenzie also wanted to know about anybody's experience using Whova. But so my experience, I've been on a conference planning committee that's using Whova, and it seems to be that you still have to do quite a bit of the virtual event coordination yourself, because you have to provide all of the Zoom meeting links that go in the Whova virtual conference, but it just provides kind of a platform and a space for that. So I don't know if any of our panelists can speak to that or not, but if anybody in the attendee list as well wants to share a bit more, you're welcome to raise your hand and I can allow you to share.
My experience is similar to yours, Leslie, in terms of Whova. We're utilizing it now for the Learn conference. It's going to be the platform of choice. But honestly, if you use Zoom, a lot of people don't realize that Zoom has advanced features, and it may cost more money, of course, and you can look into it. But some of those advanced features will allow you to do some of the conference type planning that you're looking to do. I've seen people have pretty good success with those breakout room sessions, just on a smaller scale conferences. And I have a couple of other links, and I'll put in the box as we're going through Q&A, of some other companies that are really doing a good job with virtual conferences, but of course they're very expensive. Oh, on a side note, I thought about with Zoom, you can also have these vanity profiles, and I think they cost a little bit more if you have your business, education, or enterprise plan, but those also give you that landing site that you need for people to connect virtually, and it kind of lays out links for conferences.
And Tracy, I see that you have your hand raised, and I'm going to unmute you in just a sec, but I wanted to read a question that you had submitted to me via email beforehand, so that our panelists can follow up on that as well. But it was just, how do you get people to attend virtual events when we're feeling a bit zoomed out? And I especially am interested in that because that's why we invited some of these panelists to talk about different formats that aren't just getting on Zoom and having a live event like we're doing right now. So I'd love to have folks speak to that. But Tracy, I'm gonna go ahead and allow you to talk. So there you go. Oh, I think you still have to unmute yourself, Tracy. Okay. I'm gonna leave this as a, oh, she can't find her button. Okay. You'll still be allowed to talk. If you find your button, you're welcome to jump in. But
So
no,
I've got a quick answer to the getting folks to attend your Zoom that I've seen other folks use. And this is more for leadership meetings or for small meetings, but to have a porch drop, whether it be snacks or whether it, sometimes I've seen people leave drinks or something if it's like a happy hour event. But to have some sort of funny glasses or something to get on your Zoom, those can be mailed out. Or if everybody's local, it could be a porch drop and still done from a distance.
Yeah, and I would say that the Women Make Arkansas Market, I mean, as far as having videos that are posted throughout the day and in a way that people can return, I mean, it's not quite as engaging and alive, so it might not necessarily work for everything. But I think for that event, if it's really like a story focused event, I think having a very a video approach that people can come back to days after that time really adds a lot of flexibility. Especially, like, I know I'm just hoping the dog doesn't come in the door right now and hoping my child actually got back to class at 1:30 and all of that kind of stuff went on behind the door. So that kind of allows people to do things at their own according to their own schedule, and maybe makes it a little more likely that they would come back and watch those things when they're able to.
All right, great. So Kay had followed up on an earlier question asking if anybody had used an event system that included the virtual delivery. And so Kristy has shared one example of Wellington. And yeah, if anybody else has others to share, everybody should be able to contribute to the chat if you do, all panelists and attendees. And then if you'd like to be able to talk, theoretically, I can let you talk. Oh, yay, Tracy.
Unmuted. Did I unmute?
Yes.
Okay, this is Tracy. I actually held a conference with HUVA in August I'm on a parent advisory council for children with special healthcare needs. So it's like children with disabilities. And I'm responsible for like 3 counties, but we're trying to reach like as many families in the state of Arkansas as possible. So the problem is, how do we find some of these families? And that's one of the things that we've been working on. But we usually do an in-person event that has 2 tracks. one for younger families with young children and families that have school-age children. And so it was literally, it was a lot of work. And we are going to have to do another virtual conference. So I think we're going to re-sign up with Whova since now we've established it. But the biggest thing that we loved about Whova was the social connections. Like the attendees can connect with each other, they can connect with the speakers, they can chat during the speakers, they could, you know, talk to the vendors, you know, they can watch videos on the vendors. So it was really an interactive experience, and I'm not sure that, can Zoom do that?
Yeah, I don't think that Zoom can do all of those things at once, right? Yeah, I see Kristy nodding. But yeah, I mean, I think if somebody's really on a tight budget, they could create their own kind of like landing page website, and like, you know, Facebook, like Erin used the Facebook event to do for the virtual market. You know, you can create kind of a landing spot for some of those different things to happen, but I think if you want it to be seamless in the way that it is when it's on Whova,
well, and they can rewatch it too, so they for up to 6 months. So it really was great, and we did get a grant through Blue Cross Blue Shield, a mini grant, because I attended one of the outreach classes on how to write a grant. So thank you for that. And we may get a gift this year from CDC, from the Center for Disease Control, may sponsor our event this year. So look for sponsors if you do need to use a virtual platform that's more than Zoom. So
and I think, so one of the questions that I jotted down while you all were talking was just, you know, with event planning in person, there are so many details. Are there certain details when you were kind of adapting events for a virtual space that you had to let go of because it was just, you know, one thing too many, or were there certain details that you weren't expecting that came up when planning virtual events? So that's really a selfish question for me because I'm not a very detail-oriented person. So I'm always discovering details that I didn't anticipate when I'm planning something.
For us, the biggest thing was people learning how to record because we told everybody they had to record it. We allowed one person to do a live and it had issues, but so we told them either Zoom or YouTube. And this next time we're going to tell them all YouTube because we want to save their videos to our YouTube channel to be able to use them to share with families. So there was a huge learning curve on that. Some crying involved.
That is a great point, though, that all of what you do on your online platforms, you can save as collateral then for your outreach later, right? Like that has been a super bonus for us, like being able to do that.
And we did have our speakers and things let them know that ahead, like they were agreeing to that. So just for legal reasons.
I know when I decided to use the Facebook discussion, I had absolutely no clue what I was doing. I mean, this was just the only way that I could come up with to pull off what I wanted to pull off. And as Victoria can attest, I'm really a one-woman shop. I mean, I do everything myself, except for the wonderful help of, you know, one or two interns and a designer who lays out the books. And so, but when I get something in my mind and I decide I'm going to do it, then I'm going to make it happen, whether I get any sleep or not. And so, you know, so that's kind of how it was. So that's why all those backstops that I suggested of just having, you know, plan A, plan B, plan C. And I guess unlike Leslie saying she is, although I would say you are very detail oriented if you could handle all of this, but I'm extremely detail oriented. I used to practice law and I want I want everything to go as planned. So as you can imagine, a time like this, I've had to let a lot of that go. And so I did have to, there were days, there were times throughout that event where the internet connection did not, videos just weren't uploading, and I felt like people were waiting on me, and I was doing this all by myself. And I, kind of had to step away for a minute and just let it go. But I think, unless you're super familiar with that platform that you're using, fortunately, I would say, I think people are willing to give a lot of grace right now because they understand that we're all overloaded. And so that's really nice. And I think especially at that time, I did make a note at the top of the event page that I'm doing this as one single person. So please be patient. And everyone, seemed to be. So yeah, I think people are understanding that there's a bit of a learning curve, and this is not going to always go exactly as planned, as rarely anything in life does.
Well, and the other thing that we need to do is a community meeting each year as a parent advisory council member. So Facebook Live would be great. I had never used the Facebook discussions. So can you tell me what that is?
Yeah, so it's just, and I think the link is somewhere up here, and I'll post it again just so it's closer down. But basically, it's just a part of the event page where you post. So I was just literally posting videos and saying, meet Arkansas's only chocolatier, here she is, and watch her video. Like, I was kind of giving a little introduction and posting the video. So people can comment, and some people are commenting right away, or people may comment a couple of hours later. So you still have to, sort of man/woman the discussion as it unfolds, and be sure that you're kind of responding to people's needs, but it's not like a necessarily instant thing, which is kind of nice. So I'll add that just so it's easily available there in the link, and you can kind of peruse that if you want to.
So I have a couple other questions I want to pull from the chat and from the Q&A. So Tracy Spivey had asked how to do an online gala, and that's one that I don't know if anybody in this group has done. And so that might be something, if you have done that with your nonprofit, or if you have ideas, if you can drop it in the chat or raise your hand, and I can hopefully allow you to share a little bit about that. So I'll give folks a minute to think about that. And then Dylan Edgel asked, do you see yourself continuing to hold virtual events even after we can all safely gather together? Would you consider doing a mix of in-person and virtual events? Kind of, what are the good things that you would take away from doing these virtual events out of necessity?
I would say for book launches, it's actually been, it's difficult to get people to attend, but it allows a nationwide audience, and people don't have to travel. This is great. Your friend from New York can tune in, your friend from San Francisco, your fan from Portland. That is really cool, I think, and something that I hope to carry forward in some way.
I don't have a question, or I don't have an answer about the gala, but I do have an answer about the accessibility, like whether we're going to keep doing them. So for Moms Demand Action, it's right in the name. A lot of our volunteers are moms, and so a lot of them do like the convenience of, I get done washing dishes, I'm going to turn on the Zoom. I don't have to get childcare. Like, my kid is here, the meeting's over, and I can put my kid to bed. Like, that is a super big convenience. But also, we need to think about, we've got some members of our group who really don't have great internet, or maybe they're getting internet over their phone, and so they're paying to get video to attend the meeting, and that can be a high cost for access. So we're trying to find a happy medium in between those two places. But maybe we do some of our meetings online going forward because the convenience has been really great. But I think I'm just gonna want to be around people. Like once this thing is over, like I'm gonna want to be like, oh, we've missed all of this time. We've got to make up for it, So. Did have a friend attend the Spark last night, the Museum of Discovery Spark, and she posted a selfie of her getting dressed up. I'm not sure what happened there, but however they did that, that might be a good resource there too.
Yeah, and we had Tracy on one of our earlier webinars this fall. I don't remember if you attended that one or not. We did fundraising during COVID, and Ben Goodwin from our house talked about their big online fundraiser, and Sarah Riffle from the Arkansas Food Bank talked about their Empty Bowls fundraiser. So both of those they had done online. So those are larger organizations that have greater capacity and staff members that's their whole job. But they were good, just kind of examples to look at. And then I put in the chat that Community Connections just had their big annual fundraiser this past weekend.
And actually we invited Community Connections, Courtney Leach attended our virtual conference. So, and she referred some people for us as well.
Yeah, so they're super great, and also work with kids with special healthcare needs and their families. So. Anybody else have questions to drop in the Q&A or in the chat, or if you raise your hand, I will let you jump in and talk.
I was thinking I might rewind 1 second to an earlier question about promoting. One thing that I found really successful, not just in the event, but with kind of sharing news about a book, is to identify, like in the case of my book, Women Make Arkansas, there were already 50 women in it. So I had, my audience, but even if you selected, 20 or 30 people who really want to support this event and get the word out for it, make it as easy on them as possible and write the copy, draft the copy, have the links ready to go, send it out to them and ask them to share on their individual social networks. And I think, although I'm not an expert by any means of the Facebook logarithms, but sharing something that you've posted on your organizational Facebook page or business Facebook page, I think doesn't quite get the same traction as if those individuals are posting it on their own. So I think that is a good way to just do that grassroots spreading the word at a pretty low cost. So.
Excellent.
Thanks so much, Erin. That was definitely one of the things that I wrote down while you all were talking as well, was that, this discussion today is not necessarily about communications per se, but it seems like clear, organized communication was just really essential to all the events that we were talking about this afternoon. And so that's just a great reinforcement there. And Kristy says to tag people in your social media. All right, any other questions? All right, well, I want to say thank you so much to all of our panelists and to all of our attendees for coming out. It's just really, energizing to be able to hear about some events that have been successful in this virtual space, and also, to take us back to, kind of those early days of the pandemic and just recall how quickly people had to get creative and had to innovate these events that we were planning to host. And so, as we continue to all do our work and do our, our regular jobs and all of our involvement in the community, it's great to be able to learn some of those lessons, and we appreciate you sharing your expertise with us this afternoon. So thank you, everybody, and hope you stay well, and see you again soon.
Thank you.